It might sound very strange to you, but imagine 100 years ago. Take the time you're in now. Imagine 100 years prior. Really take the time to imagine. It's probably very strange, isn't it?
There's the Dingwall. Scan them for treasure. Dang, they don't got anything.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the bridge. I'm Lieutenant Mark. I'll be your guide. Not. You already know where you are if you've been subscribed to this channel for a while. And you'll also know that we're going to be reviewing 2 episodes today. Those are Dos Cerritos and Shades of Green. Not Shades of Grey, my favorite TNG episode. If you're familiar with Prodigy and how I reviewed that, being Season 2 of Prodigy, you'll know I was reviewing 2 episodes at a time. I'm only doing that once here, because they front-loaded this release schedule. We got the first 2 episodes up front, and to keep things copacetic schedule-wise, we're going to be reviewing them together. They don't really fit that well together, and they don't really feel like a 2-parter, but they do feel like 1.5-parter. What's that? Well, Dos Cerritos, the first episode of this season, has an A-plot and a B-plot. The A-plot resolves itself seemingly all on its own in the first episode, but the B-plot continues into the second episode. What's that about? Maybe it's a 1.5-parter. I'm just making that up. Let's see what's going on with Dos Cerritos and Shades of Green. Dos Cerritos? What does dos mean? I think it means 2. Does that mean there's going to be 2 Cerritos? As in U.S.S. Cerritos here and U.S.S. Cerritos there? What does that mean? Is it like yesterday's Enterprise? We've been through many scenarios of Star Trek where we see duplicates of ourselves, and this time the Cerritos' job is to close quantum fissures. What does that mean? As soon as I saw it, I was thinking, oh, there's this season in a nutshell. Quantum fissures, alternate timelines. We're going to be interacting with an alternate timeline version of ourselves. That doesn't seem to be, initially anyway, the case as going forward for this whole season, because I think, like I said before, they wrapped it up. This is our A-plot, the quantum fissure stuff, alternate realities. In keeping with Lower Decks so far, and much to my chagrin, they don't resolve these plots inside its own episode. Mark, what are you talking about? This is episodic Trek. What do you mean we don't have things extend beyond the episode? We don't have arcs and all these things. You don't want that. You want episodic. You want things to resolve themselves. I want things to be resolved in an episode. I don't want things to be resolved not at the end of the episode and at the beginning of the next one. Or in this case, as like this happened 3 or 4 times now, leave a season on a cliffhanger. We're not changing anything. We're back to status quo. Like I said, you're probably thinking, I thought you want status quo. Not this time. I want these characters to grow a little bit. We're back to same old Mariner, same old Boimler, same old Tendi, same old Rutherford. For better or for worse. In most cases, it's for worse, actually, in my opinion. Last season, you'll probably remember if you watched my review, that I was excited about the idea of Tendi being on her own adventure. She's going to be a pirate. Sadly, just to get the spoilers out of the way here, that's not really the case this season. Remember when, a long time ago, when looked like Boimler was leaving the ship, and then the first episode of the next season came back? He's back on the show. Remember when it looked like Captain Freeman was leaving the ship at the end of one season, and when the next season came about? She's back on the ship. Remember when we thought Tendi was leaving? She's back. What are you guys thinking? What is it? What do I call this? The Lower Decks signature bait and switch? They even bait and switch you inside certain episodes. The intro is something that sure as hell could not really be occurring. What? Boimler stealing the ship? And then, of course, you find out that this is a joke. This is not real. You misinterpreted what you were seeing. You've been tricked. I'm tired of tricks. I want sincerity. Lower Decks fails when it's really, really over-the-top ironic, and it really succeeds, in my opinion, when it's brutally sincere. To get all this stuff out of the way, regarding my feelings towards Lower Decks as a whole, hopefully this being the last season, we can get some serious character development and some serious sincerity that I loved in Season 4. that sadly seems to be missing here. We're back to old Mariner, specifically. But we do get to see an alternate Mariner. Like I said before, the Cerritos is closing quantum rifts. We see that our character's Boimler is upset about not being in the issue of Fleet in 30 under 30 or something like that. He's flipping through it on his pad. He's not featured. That sucks. So what does Boimler want? He wants to be noticed. He wants to be important. He wants to be famous. He wants to be accomplished. Rutherford just wants to get some work done, like a great engineer. I know he is. He just wants to work harder and harder and harder, and he's looking for work, but he's replacing Tendi. It's obvious if you know Rutherford, you know the show, and you can follow along even with this episode. He's replacing his, love, quote-unquote, for Tendi with time spent working, so he doesn't have to think. He doesn't have to consult his inner monologue and worry, oh no, I'm having an original thought. Oh no. Hopefully I can just fix something. Workaholics, what does that turn you into? All work and no play makes Rutherford something. Go crazy. Don't mind if I do. And Mariner is just being Mariner, who is the same Mariner we basically saw in episode 1, season 1. She's been through a lot, but is it sinking in? I don't know. Your mileage may vary, as I am wont to say. We try to close this quantum fissure, but there's a problem. We're getting hailed. Something has come through this fissure. It's an alternate universe Cerritos. It looks like the Cerritos may be us, displaced in the future slightly. You know the story. Had we made different choices, this is how we would have ended up. What's different about this story? What made it a little bit interesting for me? And what made it a little bit disappointing when we eventually dropped it? Or so it appeared. We've all had the past we had not taken in Star Trek. We've seen it lots of times. Tapestry. But this time we're actually interacting with a crew that exemplifies the past we had not taken. In many cases, for the better. These people, at least in their current mindset, are us, but better in some ways. And we get to interact with them. And we get to help them. Right? That's what makes it a little bit different. It makes it a little bit fascinating. It makes it a little bit remarkable. You see, Boimler meets this other alternate Boimler on this alternate Cerritos, the Dos Cerrito, the 2 Cerrito. And he's way cooler than our Boimler. And he's way more accomplished. And he's way more confident. The alternate Rutherford is basically a Borg. If you want to do all work and no play, that makes you a Borg, apparently. He has all these kind of neat cybernetic implants that he's elected himself, I assume, to have implanted that allow him to work harder, better, faster, and probably smarter. But, you're dangerously close to a Borg, which is literally what Boimler says. And I'm sure it's what everyone was thinking. Now, our alternate universe Mariner, on the other hand, by the way, in this alternate universe, Tendi stayed a pirate. That's the divergent point, if we're to believe this. They say that we don't have a Tendi. So Tendi staying a pirate improves Boimler? What's that about? Anyway, alternate Mariner is the captain of this ship, because as we find out later, the old Captain Freeman has been sent to Starbase 80. And if we know our lower decks lore, we would know that Starbase 80 is not a nice place to be. So I wonder what she did. Maybe that'll be revealed later on. I don't know if we return to this. Our other Mariner in this alternate universe is accomplished, very strict, angry, and generally the opposite of Mariner. If only we could Tuvix them together, right? And create one Super Mariner. Don't tell me you weren't thinking it. I was thinking it. You gotta take the good with the bad, right? It's interesting in this alternate timeline here that not everybody's all bad, because we're not all good. And even some characters seem to be the same in both universes, that being their Tallinn and our Tallinn. One says fascinating, the other says remarkable. Other than that, they seem exactly the same. Sometimes it's funny when you are the same in another universe, or you are the same in the mirror universe. Maybe you can just be bad in both, or good in both. One thing that was not good, I will say, was there was a moment where Rutherford, our Rutherford, snuck up behind alternate Rutherford and altered his brain. And this is kind of played off like it's a good thing. Did you notice this? I gasped. I couldn't believe this. Our Rutherford was, incensed about the fact that this other Rutherford, Otherford, the first of many word puns in this 2-episode series here that was starting to drive me crazy by the end of it. We had like 5 word puns too many this time. Funny, but spread them out. Anyway, Otherford, the robot Robotford, there's another pun for you, was standing there working on something, and our Rutherford snuck up behind him, opened his head, and pressed a button or something, and gave him back his emotions. Is that right? That's not you. That's a different you. You can't do that. This is crazy. I couldn't believe what I saw. One of those things that kind of sneaks by, and then you think about it. I'm going to have to say no on that one. But what are we working on? You see, we have to close this fissure. And what do we do in Star Trek when we need to use some technobabble? We got to do a deflector pulse. And that's what we got to do here. But we need the mother of all deflector pulses. What this amounts to is creating a bracket between both Cerritos ships in and around the deflector assembly, or engineering hull, we could call it. And it requires one Cerritos to be this way and the other one to be this way, upside down and inverted in the opposite direction. And it was an interesting visual. It looked cool. It called to mind the days of Star Trek Enterprise when we saw Tucker try to go between 2 different ships at warp. Remember that? When we had to join our warp bubbles? Those were the days. But this is this day, and this is Cerritos trying to close this fissure so that the bad Cerritos can go through. Who you calling bad Cerritos? Hey, we're the Prime Universe. Insert jokes about what universe is Prime and timeline stuff. You know what they do in Lower Decks. They insert our conversations and our arguments into their world. So we can kind of, poke fun at it in a lighthearted and kind of safe environment where we can really, get down to the brass tacks of things, as is, as is the case in Lower Decks often. Our B plot, while this is going on, remember how Tendi was pirating? She's still pirating, and she's not back. This is actually the opener for this episode. I think it was somewhere in the Delta Quadrant. I may be wrong. Tendi is on the arm such that they are, arm candy. I think I heard that somewhere before. I don't know. Tendi is that, but in a disguise. If you look closely, you can tell this is Tendi, and she sounds like Tendi. But she's walking around with what appears to be one of many Star Trek collector characters, like that Fajo guy from the Most Toys. Remember that? We've seen a lot of these people, and they usually tend to be villains, or people are running a museum, either one. And this character is actually being staked out for a potential piracy operation on behalf of Tendi and the Orions and Tendi's crew on their Orion ship. You see, this character was being set up as a target for Tendi and her friends, and the piracy involves essentially beating these people to a pulp, stealing their things, and going back to Orion. But we somehow managed to make it feel nice, because Tendi is nice and Tendi doesn't want to kill these people. Take special note. The other Orion pirates, Tendi's crew, really do look like they want to kill these people. Make a special note for later. You'll see why in a moment. This is not enough, though, to pay back her debts. She has to pay back money or something to her Orion family so that she can get off, scot-free, off the hook, so she can go back to Starfleet. This isn't enough. We need more. Guess what? Erica, what is this, Tendi's sister, tells her that they found another Orion ship, a very old one. Very cool. You got me interested. You say old ships, I'm on board. Hopefully, literally. Tendi has to go find this old Orion ship, her and her crew. They do, but they're not alone. There's Blue Orions. If you remember TAS, the animated series, the first animated series in Star Trek, which I believe has been decanonized officially until things from it are brought into canon, into Lower Decks. Insofar as Lower Decks is canon, we've brought back the Blue Orions from the animated series, and they're really odd outfits, and just strange weapons, strange goggles, strange logos. They're here, and they're looking for this ship too. Hey, there's no honor amongst thieves, I guess, and Orions are going to be pirating from other Orions, or in this case, Orions. So they're brought into quote-unquote canon, and they're brought into a quote-unquote fight with our characters. But this ship isn't any normal Orion piracy ship. No. This turns out to be a medical ship. And what do medical ships probably have? Laughing gas. So we're able to kill, there I said that, neutralize these blue Orions with this laughing gas. Even though our characters are saying, remember earlier, they wanted to kill that collector fellow, and now they don't want to kill these blue Orions because Tendi's crew said, we don't want to kill people. We want to run, I don't know, a museum, a bakery, and I want to teach how to dance. 10 minutes ago, you were bloodthirsty. Now you don't want to kill, and actually, I was just being forced to do this because I'm a pirate, even though I don't want to be a pirate, and I want to do all these other fun things. I don't know. It smacks of a much lesser quality show. Frankly, it smacks of a show for 5-year-olds. I don't know. Even though shows for 5-year-olds are pretty good sometimes. Really, these Orion pirates just want to be nice and want to run, I don't know, bakeries and schools and things like that. Kind of doubt that. Something about it felt not real. It felt like we were flying a little bit too close to the sun on that one. It was, breaking my suspension of disbelief, if you can believe that. I didn't really believe this one. And it wasn't very funny, and I don't know if it was necessary. Anyway, we managed to not kill these Orions. We just neutralized them with laughter. I can believe Tendi wanting to do that, but these other Orions, I'm not so sure. Again, you may think differently. This ship, though, we bring it back. It's not enough again. Why? I thought we could pay off our debts with this ship. We're in a war now with the Blue Orions. That's setting up our episode 2. Remember how I said this was a 1.5-parter? That's our other parter. The next episode is a sequel to the B plot of this episode. Or was it the A plot all along? Depending on how important you think the whole Tendi piracy thing is. We do manage to close this rift, by the way. The quantum rift from that other plot line, with their mother of all deflector pulses, using the power of both ships. But there's a catch. You see, our Mariner and their Mariner are switched. Their Mariner seemed to initiate it, at least on first inspection. You see, our Mariner needs to learn to lead. Their Mariner needs to learn to laugh. So we should switch places. Wouldn't that be an interesting idea for this season? We switched Mariners, so we had serious Mariner learning to have fun in this season on our Cerritos, and their Cerritos, when at the end of the season when we got that Mariner back, she would know how to be serious and how to lead. That would be really wonderful, right? But we've kind of reinterpreted that, and what came out of this whole operation was that, no, the alternate Mariner is just bad. By force, tying up our Mariner at phaser point, has switched herself with the other ship because that's what she wants. The alternate universe Mariner actually just wanted to goof off and not learn anything. She just wanted to be bad. And she had, I guess, the duration of this episode to plan this insane scheme. And when our Mariner arrived on their bridge, instead of telling them, hey, we're switched, you gotta switch us back, they don't really do that. They run through a whole gamut of other ideas to try to teleport them in between both ships, all of which fail, adding drama, and at the last moment she just says, we're switched, and they believe it. Even though you believed it, you believed they'd believe it, and you'd probably tell them, listen, we're switched. But Mariner didn't, because she's dumb? Why wouldn't you say that? This is Star Trek. This is Lower Decks. They're savvy about Star Trek in a sense. If you just said, listen, their Mariner and your Mariner, the one you're talking to here, we're switched, can you switch us back? They go, oh, okay, I believe you, which is ultimately what happens. But they wait to do it to the last minute because Mariner won't really say it that way. So their Mariner and our Mariner are switched back onto their rightful ships. Or are they? Maybe, if they're really bold, they're not. At the last episode of this season, they reveal that they weren't switched. And the other Mariner figured that this would happen and put in a failsafe somehow. I don't know how this would work, but maybe that's me just hoping beyond hope that something really meaningful and interesting with regards to Mariner occurs in this season. It won't. But wouldn't it be cool if Tendi stayed apart this whole season and she went on a different adventure and we saw a whole lot more of the Orion culture and a different point of view here, and Mariner was the bad Mariner and only we knew it, but that Mariner learned to have fun and stop being so mean, it would be cool. But that's not what's going to happen. Like I said earlier, I insinuated that everything interesting that was brought up in this episode was kind of dropped, and it was. For these reasons I just laid out. Dos Cerritos actually is not a very good season opener for me. In terms of season openers so far with the first 5 seasons of this show, I didn't really like the first episode of season 1. I didn't really like the first episode of season 2. I liked the first episodes of season 3 and season 4 a lot. This one, I didn't really love so much. In fact, I'd say it probably ranks alongside the first episode of season 1. Not that great. It just needed a lot more in it. It didn't have a lot of pizzazz. It wasn't fabulous. It didn't feel like an opener. It didn't feel like, in season 3 and season 4, it felt like we were opening with a bang. And this one, we're kind of opening with kind of a flop. You know, a whimper. Just a little bit of stuff for you to look at. Oh, what if there was an alternate Cerritos? Wouldn't that be cool? Just kidding. Let's do nothing with it. Or at least it seems that way. Your next episode is Shades of Green. We're continuing the B plot, or A plot, depending on how you look at it, from Dos Cerritos with the piracy angle. You see, the queen of the pirates, or whatever it is, this Orion older lady, is telling the blue Orions and the green Orions, you are now going to be in a race between pirates, to decide who will, one person gets to keep all their winnings, and the other person gets to lose it. The other team, I should say. And this is basically saying Tendi's life in Starfleet is hanging on this mission. We've had race episodes in Prodigy before. This is in Lower Decks. And there's another thing we've seen in a different series before, that being Deep Space Nine, that we'll see again in a moment. Don't tell anybody. We need to race through these badlands, like asteroids, lots of kind of debris in here, to find some secret Orion treasure. And we're going to be racing solar sailing ships, like in Deep Space Nine. Remember that episode with the solar sailor? Did the Bajorans really use the solar sailor to get to Cardassia before Cardassians went to Bajor? Who knows? It's a big mystery. It's one of those episodes that kind of ends with a question that I really like. But it was the journey. The journey was interesting. Go watch that episode. I forget its exact name, but it was pretty fun nonetheless. A nice outing for father and son, that being Sisko and Jake, on a ye old fishing trip they went on, and did a lot of connecting that was much needed at that time. But that's a different episode. Look at me getting carried away, reminiscing about Deep Space Nine. This is Lower Decks. We need to take our solar sailors, the blue Orions versus the green Orions, our Tendi versus whatever their names were, to get this secret treasure. And whoever brings it back is the winner. And we want to win because we want Tendi back in Starfleet, right? Well, that's up to you. B-plot is our characters on the Cerritos, being Boimler, Mariner, Rutherford, Tallinn, going to a planet which has just celebrated its the advent of cashless, or the advent of post-scarcity, to be more specific. You're probably very confused about what this means. How do you get to a scenario in a global economy where you are post-scarcity, breaking down the system of all trade? It might sound very strange to you, but imagine 100 years ago. Take the time you're in now. Imagine 100 years prior. Really take the time to imagine. It's probably very strange, isn't it? Now imagine another 100 years back. Now another 100 years. Now reverse it. Imagine 300 years in the future. Wouldn't that be very strange? You probably wouldn't have the words to describe it. Maybe you don't have the words, or maybe the writers also don't have the words, to accurately describe what would be going on this planet at this time. Post-scarcity. We've hit a level of machine technology, cybernetics, economic systems, singularities, such that the economy can no longer harbor cash, in a sense. Our services and products are so cheap, we can't figure out what to charge you. Let's just not have it at all. And we're celebrating this. We got t-shirts, we got, confetti and things in the sky. We're having what would appear to be a global party, a planet-wide party. And the Cerritos is here to assist with this transfer over of banks and such, bonks, if we quote Mariner from a previous season, into, a museum, school, stuff like that. I don't know. Things that are not tied to trade specifically. And this is interesting because I've never really seen it before in Star Trek. I don't know if has this happened before. We've seen lots of first contacts, but have we seen a planet transition into money-free society? I don't know. It's always been a point of contention with Star Trek because it's so hard to explain. I have a number of books here trying to explain how this works in the Federation, and it's complicated because it's ultimately this is written by people with the minds from where you live now and in what age you live now. It's very hard to use words you don't know yet, concepts you don't know yet, things that haven't been discovered. It's easier to take technology and extrapolate it into the future, like I did here with this ship. Much harder to take concepts you don't know yet and extrapolate that into the future. Anyway, there's a problem here. Our characters, Boimler and Mariner, have our own ensigns that we're supposed to be looking after, which I hope, was going to be the angle for this season in its entirety. Our characters maturing and learning to look after ensigns, and these ensigns kind of became the comedy of this season. That would have been cool, it would have been daring, it would have been original, and it would have been good for a final season, but I don't know if that's what we're going to get, given that this is actually a very conservative show with regards to what we put in our plots. A lot of status quo, and now you're saying, I thought you liked status quo. I do, but maybe not this time, like I said before. I reserve the right to have a different opinion that could differentiate from what my overall universal opinion about something is, and I'm invoking that right now. I wish this show was less status quo. I don't know, maybe that's just me. We've lost our ensigns. Where did they go? It really looks like they're being captured by holdouts. Holdouts from the previous version of this planet's economy, who want to maintain the system that allowed them to have power. And they've been kidnapped and taken to some villa? Is that correct? I don't know. And we meet robots that are supposed to be gardeners that have been retrofitted with weapons. So we have gardeners that have transformed into sentries. And it was surprisingly funny. This was, for 2 episodes that weren't really that funny. This is kind of where I was getting a smirk. These gardeners are saying stuff like, I forgot to water them, and stuff like that. When they look at these characters, think they're dead. I forgot to water them. and they're kind of creepy. You know, there's scary, there's cute, and when you merge the two, you get kind of freaky. And that's kind of what we have here. We have docile-looking robots that looks akin to a vase or vase, depending on how you pronounce it, but yet they're walking around with guns. It's it's in the freaky category, and I did like it. We do find where our characters are trapped, and they're laying there, seemingly dead on the floor. I was shocked. I said, "Whoa, what the heck? Did we actually kill them?" Not really. Our captors get away, seemingly, and the robot says, "I forgot to water them." They think everything's plants. The door opens, and it's revealed that our characters ate some kind of a bug or some kind of plant that they found on this planet that puts you into a pseudo coma. Sounds dangerous, but I guess it's good enough to get away from people who have kidnapped you, and their characters come back to life, and they're not zombies, and they're still alive. And amusingly, Boimler is the one who doesn't want to admit the mistake. Boimler doesn't want to tell Ransom that he lost his ensigns, and Boimler keeps screaming into Mariner's comm badge, and it was surprisingly funny. And Ransom is saying, like, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to be using Mariner's comm badge. It's good to see you sharing a comm badge." Boimler is the one afraid of failing here, because Boimler has stolen the other Boimler's pad. Remember the alternate Boimler? The great Boimler? The accomplished Boimler? That Boimler forgot his pad somewhere. So now we have our Boimler having stole that pad with information about the alternate universe he should not have. And now we see that Boimler is existing in the shadow of another Boimler, as if he wasn't already with that other Boimler that was on the Titan. Remember that? That was kind of forgotten. So how's that going to play out this whole season? I don't know. It's probably not, because we're probably just going to be going to status quo, and we're going to forget all these seemingly important things, these seemingly emotional, thematic, moral developments that are probably just going to be thrown out the window for funny purposes. We'll see how that works. Anyway, back to our race. We get really far behind the Blue Orions. We're going to lose. We crash our solar sailor onto a large asteroid that I think has its own gravity field. I'm not sure. We're way behind. We're never going to win. Actually, in fact, the Blue Orions are already doubling back with the secret treasure. They've essentially lapped us, but not quite. Tendi throws an anchor or something into a passing something. I don't know what it is. I watched this 2 times. What was that thing flying through the sky? I kept waiting for them to explain it. Deus Ex Machina at its finest. Something that comes out of nowhere to save the day. I don't know, is it a shooting star? Is it a comet? Is it some kind of passing energy burst from a star? I don't know what to call it. But they throw their anchor into it and it just pulls them along. And they manage to catch up to the Blue Orions. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that was? I don't know. I think this is a bridge too far. I think I was kind of out of it at this point even. Shocking to say. We catch up to them and we pirate the Orion secret item, the secret treasure, off of them. Pirates versus pirates. I did catch that. How are pirates going to win a race? Well, we'll let them get ahead of us. They'll get the treasure and we'll pirate it off them. Which is what our pirates do. The Green Orions. Tendi, our heroes. But Tendi does the Starfleet thing. I don't know. I don't really want to call it that because it's kind of nasty. She destroys the treasure. What if that's an ancient cultural thing? One of 2 shocking things that happen in this episode that just kind of get forgotten about. Rutherford alters Otherford's brain without his consent, and Tendi destroys what, for all she knew, could have been an ancient Orion relic, a treasure. I don't like that idea either. Questionable things in this episode, in these 2 episodes, which make for 2 questionable episodes so far as season openers go. By the way, in another mini plot, Tendi has discovered that Erica was pregnant. Tendi should not have been sneaking into Erica's quarters and reading her secret pad by candlelight in the dark and finding out all of her secrets. Tendi spent this episode trying to get Erica to not take any risks. Don't get involved with those Blue Orions. Sit down. Put your feet up. But the trick, all along, was on Tendi. Everyone else knew Erica was pregnant, but not Tendi. Why? Because Erica's baby was going to be the new mistress of the winter constellations, something like that, which would require our Tendi to spend 14 years looking after her or something. Alien cultures that we don't know a lot about. We make up kind of cultural rituals on the fly as the plot needs it. And this one, like way back when with the Vulcans, involves our character having to do something that they don't want to do, which is going to take away from their time on the ship. Earlier with Spock, now with Tendi. Tendi, had she not known Erica was pregnant, she might have got off the hook. Now they can't. They were keeping the secret from Tendi. Tendi, I wish you never secretly went into that person's quarters and looked at her stuff. Bad Tendi, you are bad. Bad Tendi, very, very bad Tendi this episode. As well as bad Rutherford for the reasons I explained earlier. Now, our characters, having destroyed the secret Orion treasure, it's announced that no, you both lose. So what are we going to do? Well, it turns out that our Orion characters have lost their holdings, lost their capital, lost their money, just like how that planet before lost its money. You see? We see both sides of it. We see Orion's and Tendi's family losing their status. And then we also kind of see that from some characters, the bad characters, on that planet earlier, that our characters were assisting in its transition to post-scarcity. So Season 2 is actually about losing money and gaining friends. Right? that the second episode. And the first episode was about finding our alternate self and helping them. Right? So so both of these episodes are kind of orbiting this idea of friendship, getting new friends, and making friends with ourselves. If that makes sense. I was kind of getting where they were going. I just wish they went a little bit further. Tendi is back on the ship after having left her original Orion family, and our characters are back from their amusing adventure on that planet, and we're all one big happy family again. And hopefully one day our Boimler can end up in that Fleet magazine that he was looking at that pad so long ago at the beginning of Dos Cerritos, the first episode in this 2-episode pack of episodes. That was our season opener for season 5, the final season. As I said before, I'm hoping we can kind of keep our gains here and not lose our gains so hard like we've done with Mariner. Mariner goes on an incredible journey, changes so much, and then reverts back to status quo. Is Boimler going to do that? Is Tendi going to do that? Tendi's back in Starfleet now. All that piracy stuff. Just kidding. Remember how Mariner, Captain Freeman, left the ship? Boimler left the ship, and then Tendi left the ship, and they all come back in the first or second episode of the next season. We did it again. They're pulling the wool over my eyes. It's the bait and switch. Thematically speaking, like I said before, they do kind of link up. We're removing money in a good way, and then gaining new friends, gaining new insights, new frontiers, and then we're doing it again kind of in the opposite way with the Orions. You both lose. You both lose your money. Tendi and your family, you're not free to go, no obligations, no status. You're just people now. The great equalizer. But now Tendi's back in Starfleet. But what was that stuff about the alternate timeline, the alternate universe? It's not us in a one-way interaction with our past selves, or future selves, depending on which path we had taken. We're actually changing things. We're meeting them, we're telling them things, and we're growing and learning. So it's about socializing. It's about friends, it's about growth, and it's about money, and it's about changing how we trade with each other. Like I said, the theme is there. I wish it had gone a little bit further, and I wish it would have linked up a little bit easier. For me, I had to do a little bit of work here to massage this idea into my mind, but I hope you get the picture. Musically, I love the Cerritos theme. I love the intro, but I was kind of, musically bored for these 2 episodes. I was kind of musically snoozing. Nothing interesting, no new inventions, no new medleys, no new melodies. We'll call it boring on the music front. Visually, it was really fun seeing these 2 Cerritos ships kind of match up the way they did. And we got to see that cool deflector pulse. I love a deflector pulse. And I like being on this Orion ship, this old ship they found, the medical ship. It looked pretty cool, and it looked in keeping with the way a ship should look from that era. That being 300 years prior or something like that, as the Orions had said. Leave it to Lower Decks to find out how to make a ship look good. Lower Decks knows how to do the ships. They know how to do it right. They know how to make it look canon. They know how to make it look like it fits. The same can't necessarily be said for some other Star Trek shows, in the live-action variety, usually. But Lower Decks does the ships good. Plot-wise, we're back to square one, as it was always going to be with Lower Decks. And you can already tell from the way I explain this that it did annoy me. A lot happened, but it was extremely predictable, and not in a great way. I knew these pirates were just going to end up being all happy with each other and not really wanting to kill these people. And oh, great! We're all friends now. We're not really bad pirates. Come on now. I mean, call it a cheap review if I say come on now, but without explaining it. And if I say come on now, do you know what I mean? So when I say come on now, you can feel free to repeat it. Come on now, really? That's what's going to happen? Everything ends so cute. The ending is cute. Okay? They had a cutiny. That's another pun that happened here. We're doing a mutiny against the Erica because the Erica was pregnant, even though everybody knew but Tendi. Oh, we're going to have a mutiny, but it's going to be a nice mutiny. It's going to be a cutiny. Cutiny, Otherford, Bointers. Bointers was funny. But do we need 5 word puns here? Maybe save some for the rest of the season. Hopefully the rest of the season is better than this. So plot, not wonderful. Music, not wonderful. Thematically, there's something there. Visually, there could have been more, but it wasn't that bad. In terms of the first 5 season openers here, this actually ranks in the bottom half, I'm sorry to say. I'm going to have to go... Jeez. It's not that bad. I'm not coughing because it was that bad. I'm going to have to go with a 4 out of 10. It could have been a lot better. I can see some people being really excited for this, but for me, I needed a lot more. I needed a season opener that was shocking, was scary, was interesting, and it really and one that would set the stage, one that would change the paradigm. And this is not what we got from this. That was Dos Cerritos and Shades of Green, and I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you next time I see you. So long.